ThoughtFLOW Thursday night. Here we are. Well, here I am actually. I'm just waiting for Nikki. I'm super uncomfortable in this chair, so pardon my fiddling. But hello, Martin Reed. I hope you're staying tonight. Good conversation as always. There's my partner in parlance, Nikki Taylor Stewart. She just waved. She's coming. She's on her way. There we go. It's gonna be one of those nights. I've been exceptionally clumsy all day. So let's see if she can get in. There she is.
Hello. Oh, wow. Eyelash. Hello. How are you guys?
You know, it's Thursday.
It is Thursday.
And a long weekend.
Figuratively and literally.
Well, I mean, literally, they're all long. But yet not long enough to get a damn thing done. But that's a different story.
Thank you, Martin. Yeah, such an interesting, wow, what a weekend, right?
Right. Well, it's been a hell of a week. You know, everybody that I know has been.
I'm gonna have to look at the construction of my. Well, you have to look at the construction of my studio. You'll get over it.
We're used to the patches behind you, dear. But and I'm gonna be really disappointed when you actually paint. But, you know, it's been kind of a heavy week, even when we, you know, knew it was coming and were prepared. It still just kind of lands on you like big ass cheeks. I don't know. I'm just saying it was a lot, and like so many people, and it was a full moon on top of it, so you know everyone was vacillating between half and three quarters crazy. But you know,
we're in a wicked, wretched pre-shadow for Mercury, which goes retrograde on Saturday. That was such an evil smile.
I mean, if the universe is gonna dish it, I could at least think evil right back at it, you know?
Like two hot fat butt cheeks.
Hot, sweaty butt cheeks.
With hair.
Just hairy, sweaty butt cheeks after being stuck in traffic for like 6 hours.
After working construction in
With
90-degree weather.
There's just no AC. It's those it's the ripest cheeks you can find. But alas, here we are. Hello, everybody. Welcome to ThoughtFLOW this Thursday night. I am happy to see all of you. And Nikki is showing us her wall of squares.
It's now turned into everyone's. There's some new ones. It's now turned into everyone's test spot for paint.
I feel like every day there's new squares, which is kind of nice. It's like, ooh, what shade of gray can we have today? So, I mean, I'm not complaining. I'm just, you know, appreciating the variety.
Well, I will tell you, I know way too much about vanity lighting, bathroom wall hooks, toilets, speaking of hot, sweaty ass cheeks.
Do tell me you are getting a
toilet way too much about these things, and
oh no.
No. Not for the kids.
No, I mean, you
not
are getting
for the kids.
All excited. Are you there?
I'm here. Okay. You're getting glitchy, but I'm here. No, I am definitely here.
All right. Okay, so Harmony would like to vote about your paints. That will come later. We've got lots to talk about tonight, but I do think maybe we should have a vote, Nikki. I mean, shouldn't our viewers have a say?
Well, you can, but the colors that have been paid for, purchased, and should be coming next week are paid for, purchased, and should be coming next week.
You have other rooms, dog. Go paint the neighbors. We just feel like we should have a vote, is all.
Okay, you can have a vote. Uh-huh.
All right, but later.
Later. Yes.
Later. So, Nikki, why don't you get us started?
Logging in as my alter ego. Wow, so it is the anniversary of the Tulsa Massacre coming up on the 31st and the 1st. And what an anniversary. What do you call it? Do you call it an anniversary, or is it a remembrance? Perhaps that is a better.
Well, this is a centennial. So
It is.
might as well just call it the centennial.
So I came across an article on The Guardian that I thought I spoke to Misty about, but apparently that's not who I spoke to. And it's a video, and it's I have because I want to say her name. So Viola Fletcher. Viola Fletcher is 107 years old, and she spoke before Congress. She was 7 years old in Tulsa when the massacre happened. She is 100. Her brother also spoke. He is 100. And there was another woman who spoke via screen virtually, and she is 106. And so two things struck me. One of them was, at the age of 107, this woman is gorgeous. She is articulate and sound in a way that you see people lose their faculties, I don't know, 30, 40 years before that.
About an hour ago.
Right. But she's 107, and she was there. And it literally took 100 years for her to get an audience with the U.S. government to speak about what we all know is the biggest, loudest cover-up. It is considered most likely the largest massacre. We know that Greenwood was Black Wall Street, all black town. But the thing that the one of the other things that really, really struck me was she can barely live. She lives in poverty. She speaks about how her life might have been different had this not have happened, because this was a prosperous town of Blacks. But this woman at the age of 107 lives in poverty. I quote, "My country, state, and city took a lot from me. Despite this, I spent time supporting the war effort in the shipyards of California. But most of my life, I was a domestic worker serving white families. I never made much money. To this day, I can barely afford my everyday needs." And the city of Tulsa profited by unjustly using the names and stories of victims to enrich itself and its white allies. There's that word again. Through the $30 million raised by the Tulsa Centennial Commission, while she continues to live in poverty.
Now, let's talk about this Centennial Commission. Listen, okay, at least we're talking about this whole thing. They have earned $30 million. Hi, Coach Robin. $30 million with a 30. $30 million. These poor souls who watched their families killed, their property taken, looted, burned out, shot from treetops, rooftops, because the sheriff at this time in this situation deputized 500 men. It has taken 100 years for this woman, Viola, who has lived long enough to be able to tell her story, not a penny, barely even the story, but not a penny, a drop here and there of acknowledgement. It is insult after insult after insult to these victims, and you have a commission that has earned $30 million so that you can promote yourself and your city. I wouldn't want to promote my city if this is what I was known for. This and the Trump rally, of course. I wouldn't want to be known for that. These folks are proud.
They are very proud. And do you wanna tell them how this started, Misty? How Tulsa started?
Why, yes, I will tell you. For those of you who don't know, and I would just like to start off by saying this event was originally called, sorry, now I'm all wound up. This event was originally called the Tulsa Race Riot of 1921. Now, let's be honest here, okay? When we use the term riot, because listen, language is everything. When we use the term riot, what is the assumption? The assumption, Nikki, share with our friends.
For me, the assumption is that it came from both sides.
Thank you. That it was a two-sided event.
Yeah, that's the first thing that I think of. And I also think of, maybe because I live in this day and age, I think of a race riot. I think of a group, that marginalized group, that wasn't getting something, and they were going after something. They were going after something. And I think that in this day and time, that tends to sometimes point to the marginalized group trying to get something or fight for something that is rightfully theirs, or that they're being left out of. Right. And I think it's an important distinction to be made. You know, like what we're saying right now is that Black Lives Matter. So we're fighting to hear and to be acknowledged, to say, like, we matter.
Right.
But that's not what Tulsa was.
Well, and it's a compound assumption, right? The assumption generally is that, yes, it's two sides clashing. And I dare say that it is that Black people, those foul and wily miscreants, were out there and they were just all pissed off, so they were attacking people. That is not what happened in Tulsa. So if you've read that anywhere, find that book and burn it. It's a lie. What has happened, and this is even according to the 1997 commission that the government put together, the government of Oklahoma put together to investigate this situation, because the eyewitness accounts weren't enough. And talk about that later too. But this came about because a young Black man worked in a building. It's like so predictable at this point.
It's so predictable.
Like, rinse and repeat.
Okay, let's play a game. Yeah. What do you think happened when it starts with young Black boy?
Right. Especially in this time. But so this young Black male was working in a building where Blacks were not allowed to use the bathroom. So in order to use the bathroom, he had to go down the stairs, outside, and over to the next building and up the stairs where there was a colored bathroom. Back then, elevators had all buildings that had elevators had elevator operators. And so the elevator operator just happened to be a white woman. Do I need to fill in any more blanks or with me? Because, I mean, we hear this story all the time. Yes, Rosewood, Florida, Wiley Avenue in Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh. So as the man is leaving, the elevator operator starts screaming. And then you know what happens. So, hi, Brett. So they decide, the people at the courthouse, the police, they weren't super concerned about it. They were like, oh, we'll just arrest him tomorrow. But the news gets out. I want to just say this to you, and we're going to go off on a tangent, so just be ready.
Be ready.
In case you did not know this, the presumption of a neutral and unbiased presentation in the press did not come about until the 1930s. The expectation of neutrality.
Mm-hmm.
So think about it. This kid had to do what people do. And back then they had to do it in certain places with, the right color distinction. This story gets out. The press later in that day puts out the story.
Mm-hmm.
And they basically say,
Mm-hmm.
go nab. His name was Dick. His last name escaped me, but I'll remember.
Is it Rowland? Rowland?
That's it. Dick Rowland. Go nab Dick Rowland. He attacked a white girl. And listen, the reason why this whole press and neutrality thing is important, history always repeats itself. Always and forever, until you learn something, which we as Americans tend not to be very capable of. If you take a look at what's happening in the press right now with certain news networks that perpetuate faux news, we are starting to see similar refrains, a return to this lack of neutrality causing harm, great physical harm, and it's on its way. So we avoided the tangent there, but that is a very, very important piece of that. So this is what's put out into the media. A bunch of white males go to the courthouse. African American males.
That NIGGER.
Yes.
How dare he touch a white woman?
Sorry, that was about it. It got buzzed in my face. I didn't like it. So African American males in the town went to the courthouse. They're like, hey, dude, this isn't quite what happened, but let's not get all hotsy-totsy here. They were told to leave. They were ordered to leave.
Uppity Negroes. Who do they think?
Who do they think they are?
Except them Greenwood Negroes.
Get off my lawn. So they, as the African American men were leaving, single file, according to the press reports or the eyewitness reports at the time, a white man went after one of the black male's guns to disarm him. It went off. Everybody started shooting at each other. Black males retreated. White males were deputized. I hereby the official murderer of Tulsa. 500.
Wait, are we talking about Ahmaud Arbery? Oh, no, that's right. We're talking about no, that's right. We're
not that one.
Not that one, right?
Lo and behold, next morning, 5 a.m., they are waiting. They've got the one end of the town completely boxed in. They are taking positions on top of buildings and on grain elevators, and there are helicopters. Now, though this is kind of controversial, Viola said that there were bombs being dropped, and I believe Viola.
Yes. Because
that's going to be scorched into your brain as a 7-year-old child.
Yes. And her, just for the record, her brother is only 1 year younger than her. And this was, etched.
So at this point, I think it was very clear to the residents of Greenwood that they were in big trouble. And yet, rather than going out and starting a riot, many of them chose to stay in their homes so as not to attract any trouble. And then this is what happened.
No, it's Philadelphia, just, however many years later, right?
Right.
I'm going to jump in because there's something really interesting. The trouble had begun the day before. A black teenage shoeshine boy named Dick Rowland had been arrested and charged with assaulting a white girl in an elevator of a downtown Tulsa building. Oh, here's the best part. Even white police detectives thought the accusation dubious.
Oh, and she later recanted.
Oh, oh. The consensus later was that whatever happened between them was innocuous. Perhaps that Rowland had stepped on the toe of young Sarah Page when the elevator lurched because Boo had to go pee and he had to leave one building and run up to another building. But that was academic after the Tulsa Tribune, one of the city's two white newspapers, ran an incendiary editorial under a headline residents remembered as "To Lynch Negro Tonight."
Now, that said, they have not found, according to anything I've read, because I looked for it, because I like newspaper clippings, nobody has found an actual clipping of that headline, which is interesting. But the one that they did find was bad enough. So, I mean, and I think I closed that because there's only so much of shit you can read. But here it is, I think. That's not it. I'll read it when I find it. But so needless to say, again, shades of Emmett Till.
Mm-hmm.
Because we don't learn.
Mm-mm.
We just don't learn. So it's called a massacre now. But as recently as the commission in 1997, it was the riot, the Tulsa riot. And again, so we're talking about a wealthy and affluent Black community that 40 blocks of which were burned, looted. I mean, let's just talk about this burning and looting thing, because nowadays when Blacks commit these types of crimes where things are burned and looted, they should be taken out, drawn, quartered, whatever, because of destruction of property. Now, you have to understand why Blacks were in Tulsa at that point in the first place. You know, a lot of it was related to the migration and the fact that homesteading was a thing then. And if you're not familiar with what homesteading is basically you could just go out with a flag, stake your land. If you ever saw the movie, I think it's called
Far and Away with Tom Cruise and
that
Nicole Kidman.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is the way Blacks were allowed to get land, especially outside of cities where, you know, who wanted to deal with all that harassment and stuff. So this is where they went, you know, the whole Great Migration to toward the west through the plains. This is how it was populated. Property that they went out, earned, built up, the community that they established, destroyed.
Oh, wait, are we talking about Central Park? Oh, no, that's right. We're talking about Tulsa. Not that one.
No.
Not that one.
No. So, and while I understand some of the things that I've read have said, you know, it was just due to the heavy competition for resources that was going on at that time. No.
Stop, because you know at that time Black people got the shit end of the stick. If you could say go homestead on the side of that cliff with the goats, you know this was that's why Black people eat chitlins. That's why Black people eat ham hocks. You got the shit end of the stick. So let's not pretend like, you know, this was some great, ostentatious, wonderfully rich. I mean, it's Oklahoma, it's below the Mason-Dixon line, so it's not like you're going to go from winter to summer to, you know. But at the end of the day, it was land that they felt was bad enough for Black people to have.
Well,
But
and think about it too. These are enterprising Black people, right? These are people
that
that farmers while they were slaves.
that was my point. They took shit and turned it into gold.
Shit into gold, and some people decided, too golden for you. Let's return you back to the shit.
Oh, we didn't know that was there. Oh, wait, our bad.
No, I don't even think it was that.
So
You can't have it.
you can't have it.
You can't have it.
I'm looking at the massacre map, and
The
it's
master
really.
fill them
I'm
in.
looking at the massacre map, and I'm looking at the timestamps, and it's crazy because Tulsa was in 1921, but Springfield, Illinois was in 1908.
Mm-hmm.
Slocum was in 1910. And I'm doing the ones in the 1900s because there was definitely New Orleans in the 1860s, Thibodaux in the 1887, but it was a regular thing. East St. Louis was 1917, Chicago was 1919, Washington was 1919.
So this,
This
by the
was,
way, this map that we're looking at is from the National Reparations League, and it is a map of Black massacres.
yes.
So if you take a look at this map and you look at the dates, which is what we're talking about, I mean, these are actually fairly condensed in terms of time.
Yes, that was my point. It's like they were right. It was a regular occurring thing. I mean,
Yeah.
it was and in a very concentrated area. This is all east of the Midwest. Did I say
Well,
that right?
Sissy
Yes.
just east of, yes. Yeah, that's correct. Sissy meant Rosewood as well. I had to
Mm-hmm.
like pull my map away. I'm starting to lose my eyeballs, but mentioned Rosewood as well. That was just 2 years after.
1923. Yeah,
So
that's the thing. It's like this was a regular occurring thing. It is still a regular occurring thing. And I have to say this. I don't mean to interrupt, Misty, but I have to say this because when people say, why are Black people lazy? And we've all heard this, so we're not going to pretend like we haven't heard it. But when we speak about urban areas and we speak about areas where things are shuttered, right? Underserved, underprivileged, not terms that I like, but they certainly paint a certain picture. Black people aren't lazy. Black people built this country.
built it.
Black people built this country. When we were told you can't mix with us, whitey, you can't mix with us, Black boy, you can't mix with us. So then we did. These are towns where Black people, they created their own. They had their own communities. They were fine. They were like, okay, you don't want
Fully
us,
self.
that's fine. But that wasn't good enough. And so when we speak about why do Black people loot, I will say it again. Looting is an act of despair. Looting is how many times can you take something from a community, from a group of people that do pull themselves up by their bootstraps? Hell, they sew the boots, they make the straps, they fashion them.
No.
They do. And the minute the boot gets a little too high, Shay Whitey comes and snatches it.
Well, and I'll give you an example of that. It's so John Franklin, who actually has done a lot to help preserve some of the oral history of Tulsa. Interesting quote. He explains here, and white mobs looted the homes and businesses before they set fire to the community. For years, Black women would see white women walking down the street wearing their jewelry and go and snatch it off of them. Imagine the level of insult
Mm-hmm.
I think about Viola, and if you have not listened to her speaking about it, Nikki, why don't you share the link too?
Yeah.
You know, it's heart-wrenching to hear her say that she was a domestic, which there's no problem with that. That's a fine career. But she had to work in the homes of white people,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that her family, knowing that her friends, her town was decimated. And that was Tulsa.
She writes, because I think that this is very important. Our country may forget this history, but I cannot. I will not, and other survivors do not, and our descendants do not. When my family was forced to leave Tulsa, I lost my chance of an education. I never finished school past the fourth grade. I have never made much money. It had a lasting impact.
And when you talk about communities, oh, well, that community has been a shithole forever, and these people just won't drag themselves out of their, wear their bootstraps. It started, well, before then, actually, but I mean, think about the generational trauma that an event like this creates. Think about how it creates levels of fear that show up in someone's blood pressure when they're feeling calm. Their ancestors are still stressed. Their blood pressure is so high. We're not going to blame it on diet anymore. We know better.
For decades, the atrocity was actively covered up and wished away. Quote, I will never forget the violence of the white mob when we left our home. I still see Black men being shot, Black bodies lying in the street. I still smell smoke and see fire. I still see Black businesses being burned. I still hear airplanes flying overhead. I hear the screams. I have lived through the massacre every day. She's 107 years old. This has been her entire life.
Yeah. And still, again, what continues to chap my ass cheeks, they're not sweaty. It is just the lack of acknowledgement. To be frank, in my opinion, every dollar earned by this commission and many, many more dollars should be paid to the descendants of this. This was state-sanctioned murder.
But it's also, for decades, the atrocity was actively covered up. It's still being covered up. This woman is 107 years old. Her brother is 106 years old. And the other survivor, I believe, is 100 years old.
Right.
It's disgusting that it's 2021 and this woman is living in poverty.
Yeah.
No reparations, no acknowledgement, but there seems to be a way to amass funds for gentrification, for urban planning, which we know what urban planning is in a lot of circumstances. It's just moving people out. It's literally doing the same thing. Like, that's the irony, right? Is literally gentrification is doing what she experienced as a 7-year-old.
Right.
A white mob came to her town and destroyed it. I'm sorry. There's a saying in Chicago, when your side street gets paved, go ahead and start looking for another place to live. Because Shea Whitey is coming in. And they're not going to say, we're going to grandfather you in, which I shouldn't even say that, but we're not going to exclude you from the new taxes that you know are coming your way. They are taxing people out of neighborhoods. It's the same thing. It's the same exact thing.
By design. By design. I
You
mean,
know,
people would look down upon going in with an angry mob and just shooting people dead. So yeah, like Sissy says, just send the corporations in. And you know, the true trouble with it is that again, you can't recover from it. If you've been in a
mm-mm.
place for your whole life and somebody
Mm-hmm.
says, you know what, it's time for you to go because we're going to make it so impossible for you to live here that you're going to have to go.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if you are in a generation where it's harder to find work, it's harder to commute, all of these other things, there is no recovery from that.
No.
And when we look at the fact that the playing field isn't equal to begin with, when, you know, there is no equity, especially from Viola's life experience forward. I mean, this was 1921.
Right.
There was no way for her to catch up. And it was intentional.
And she's a woman. And it's not even just that she's Black and she survived a massacre. You have to look at the gender. She was a Black woman.
Right. Well, and here we are. So we look at what was she good for? What was her ability to be an asset came only as a domestic. That's all she could do. She didn't have the education, that she didn't have the skills to do any better. What about the next generation? What about the next generation? Look at so the Smithsonian had a really great account on this too, and I will try to figure out how to put it into the
I
chat.
got you.
If you read a lot of information about Tulsa, everybody talks about the hotel. The hotelier's family, great grandson, talks in the Smithsonian account about this. And it is phenomenal, but talks about his grandfather's experience, a great grandfather's experience, and how, you know, they came for him. He had to be sneaked out of town because they were going to intern him. I'd like to know what happened to and this is something I haven't found clearly anywhere. Nikki, maybe you have, but you know, they were rounding up people, the ones that they didn't blow away right there where they stood, they interned. Where did those people go? A lot of other people got away on the train.
Well, and isn't that, besides them lying, isn't that why the numbers massacred was so
Low.
sketchy?
Yeah, they
and
say
so
the number was 36 dead, but they also know that they assume that there are mass graves.
yes.
But nobody has investigated these mass graves. And according to the commission, not the commission, the committee that has been preserving the history, they don't believe that these graves will ever be investigated. Now, they have proof that there, in certain spots, there were definitely some sort of grave-like activities happening at some point, but they don't know for sure, and no one's going to investigate? Oh, I guess it's kind of like investigating the January 6th insurrection. You know, we can't really investigate that. Let's just leave that in the past. We don't really need to talk about that. Well, you know what? Closure. These people deserve closure.
So I was speaking about this a couple of weeks ago, and I did find an article. There are mass graves. There's at least one mass grave that they found in Tulsa. but some of the graves are, this one had 12 coffins that they believe are were victims of the massacre. Um, but it's also about, and that's it's about closure. You know, it's about, it is about this country doing its due diligence to find the remains of these people's ancestors, do whatever you need to do to figure out where they belong, and to give families closure. But it's like everything, right? If you do that, then you have to admit that a white mob came in and destroyed a town.
You know what? Listen, no, the commission has admitted it. I mean, there's no debating it.
But they're not righting the wrong.
Well, that's the difference.
They're not righting the wrong. They're using the trauma and the tragedy to essentially make money.
No, not essentially. They are definitely using. I mean, it is like McDonald's culture strikes again. You know, I mean, hey, listen, yeah. Super great. They're gonna have a big event, and John Legend is gonna sing, and Stacey Abrams is gonna be the keynote, and it's gonna be a big fat hairy party. But at the end of the day, again, what do we value?
And why is Viola still living in poverty if you can afford to hire John Legend?
I mean, she is 107 years old. Somebody buy her a mansion, get her a pedicure, get a bunch of people to take care of her. She should have a new one for every day of the week. Viola and her brother deserve what was taken away from them with interest. With interest. That their lives were stolen while they were living them.
Yeah.
Where's the money going? Oh, the money is going to the historical center, to curriculum, to all of these things that aren't going to get taught anyway, because we can't teach race in America. Look at what's happening in Texas. We can't talk about critical race theory. We can't talk about anything that actually positions Black people as anything other than lazy people who like to riot a lot.
You know, and again, like that's that thing of where if you just keep saying something, maybe people will believe it. Black people are lazy. That's funny because you made them work in the fields from sun up to sundown. You know, the sheer
Tennessee.
Just, I'm gonna say this, but you say that, and I'm gonna. This is what is actual, and we have proof that this is what is actual. But I'm gonna say this to make you, you know, those Black people, they can't do anything. They're lazy. They da 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 da. Again, Black people built this country.
It's gaslighting.
To the infinity. But the reason that history needs to be taught, and the full and the whole of history needs to be taught, is because, you know, we joked, we're not making light of it, you know, we like to keep it a little light on ThoughtFLOW, but the reality of it is that it's such a common theme that you can say little catchphrases and you're like, oh, are we talking about, oh wait, are we talking about, oh wait, are we talking about, oh wait. It's literally an endless cycle, and it's an endless cycle of trauma. It is hard to recover from trauma when you are continually being traumatized. Not because of original trauma. No, there's new on top of the origin story. So,
daily.
And when we teach history, and when you when you have to see, as little Johnny, blonde, blue-eyed boy, when you have to see that your great-great-grandfather ran into a town and destroyed it because it was owned by Blacks, you need to understand that. You need to see that. You need to understand that when you come across your Black male counterpart, that's his history. That is why he not know, then that would the great white hope in a horrific light. Yes, exactly. And so when you teach history, you teach all of it. And then it becomes a little easier to understand why Blacks in this country feel the way they do.
But it won't happen. Listen, I have hope about a lot of things. I mean, I've given up hope on a lot of things too. Like, I'm never going to be 5'8". No matter how hard I try, and even in proper shoes, I'm still never going to be 5'8". What happens and what has happened with the teaching of history in the United States is deliberate.
Mm-hmm.
They are concerned, rather than saying, oh, you know what, if we give these people hope, they can make more of a contribution, they can be this, they can do that. No, we can't have even footing here. They don't want even footing. And listen, I'm sure that some folks listening are like, whoa, that's kind of harsh, because I want even footing. I want it to be better. But you know what? Look at what is happening politically right now. Right now, 2021, states are actively working to stop, to oppress the Black vote. So for all of the hopes and dreams that we have improved, that we are more enlightened, all of that, you have to look at the truth. And what is happening at a grand scale. What is it? 39 states are introducing this kind of legislation. There's only 50.
Right.
And they won't let Puerto Rico and DC become states. Look at the populations there. So we have to be honest, and we talked about the massacre chart map. Sorry. We have to look at the fact that that's just what we know.
Correct.
We have to look at the fact that if the whim and the will is to actually abolish or inhibit or restrict the teaching of Black history, because we want to look at it in terms of this puritanical, yay, America, Team World Police point of view, the harm continues, and it makes it even harder to come out from underneath the oppressive thumb of, to be honest, I mean, who is it? It's white males. Help me out. I mean, maybe I'm looking at it in too cynical of a view, but I mean, I can't understand how you can say history is important and then not teach it.
Down here in the muckety muck, I know I said something to one of Aries teachers. We were in this meeting, and they were all excited about Multicultural Day, and I just started laughing. And Tasha, Dr. Tasha, she just started laughing at me, and she's sending me text messages. She's like, Nikki, stop. And I was like, and they're like, well, why are you laughing? And I was like, so, you want to spend a whole day, just one day, on all the other cultures and invite people like it's a carnival. I said, so all the other cultures get 1 day.
Will there be funnel cake there? Because if there's funnel cake, count me in.
And
I will eat any culture's funnel cake.
and I said, and from whose perspective are we learning about these cultures? Because that's the other thing. Because different cultures, different people from different cultures have different perspectives. And I said, but I digress. I said, you want to give 1 whole day, which is not even a whole day, but all the other cultures that are basically not American white, they get a whole day to jam pack it in. I said, that's number 1. And I said, and number 2, dance, darky, dance. You want all the other cultures to tell you about their culture because you probably don't know it because it's not
I'm not
taught.
going to get her. I'm going to let her keep going. I'm letting her go.
But if you actually just taught history, maybe you wouldn't have to shove all the other non-American white cultures into 1 day. And to her credit, she took a step back and she dropped her head. And I was like, yeah, I said, that's what people think about multicultural. I said, it's an insult. The other cultures get 1 day like it's Jeopardy, and everybody's got to do their song and dance and teach Whitey about their culture, because Whitey doesn't think your culture is important enough for Whitey to go learn about. They really just want the food. Everything was around, well, what food does your culture have? And I was like, so pick your butt up and take your butt to the city and go get some food. But if we just teach history, we don't have to have multicultural days.
But to teach history, you have to
I
know.
get it.
And to know,
absolutely,
you have to listen to the voices. You can't just erase because this is a person that you don't want to hear from. You know, and again, we have, I'm going to say her name. You know, people want to hear history from Rachel Dolezal. It's a lot easier to hear about history from Rachel Dolezal, somebody who very clearly, you know, has a problem, but you know, she's Black enough to tell that story. And someone like, you know, an Amanda Smith, or, you know, all these who is masquerading as a Native American and continually getting away with it, even to this day, you know, again, you got.
I'm just going to start saying her name like the Calvin Klein Obsession commercials. If you want to capture someone's attention, Rachel.
But here's the thing about Rachel.
Some of y'all too young for that.
Rachel was telling the story. Rachel was out there. She was military. She was no Candace Owens. Rachel was doing it. You know, I feel like this is why I can't be mad at Rachel, because she got people to listen in a way that they wouldn't listen to us. Now the whole blackface, curly hair, like who are you, German family of mine? Like that might be pushing it a little, but like she was really into it. She was totally down. I'm just saying.
If you want to capture someone's attention,
stop it. Stop it.
And the other side of that is when white people decide, oh, we have to teach history. They end up teaching the history of the cultures that is already being taught. And you know, it's like some of the, oh, let's talk about it. And I'm like, we don't want to talk about that. My kids know about that. They learn that at home.
Right.
Yeah, we already know that. Like they learned that at home. Like I'm sorry that you're just learning about it, but we did that. Okay, check the next box, please. But they do it with every culture, you know, like they really, they want to talk about how great of a man Gandhi was. Great, awesome. But do you really think Indian people don't talk about Gandhi? Like, like I'm trying to use these like extreme um examples because then it's like you never know when you're going to get that teacher who just decided to, wake up, school days, ding ding. And so like what if you get a teacher who has an awakening, like in your sixth grade, your seventh grade, and your eighth grade, and they're all different, but you got to sit there and deal with their awakening. It's like, wow, really? So we have to revisit this because y'all, it's like y'all couldn't get together and have this awakening at the same time. You couldn't like phone a friend while you were having your awakening. So
Yeah.
these kids are getting this crap regurgitated over and over and over. Um, but they're not hearing about Philadelphia
No.
because essentially that block in Philly in what was it, 85? Essentially that block was a baby Rosewood, Greenwood, whatever you want to call it.
Listen,
It was, go ahead.
they're not hearing about any of this.
No,
They're not hearing about any of this. They're not hearing about Atlanta. They're not hearing about
no.
Charleston. They're not hearing about Wilmington. They're not hearing about any of this. And if you're not teaching this, stop saying you're teaching American history. Stop it. Because you're not teaching American history. You are not. You are going to say that the Revolutionary War, I mean, we all came together and fought really nicely at the Revolutionary War, and then the black folks were like, oh, yeah, hey, man, I'm ready to get back to that cotton now. Just let me back into that field. That's not really the way it worked.
No.
So, again, you can wash it however you want. You can put lipstick on it. You can put a bow on it. You can do all of these things, but it still stinks and it's still a pig. Yes, I was showing the massacre map there, which, like I said, oh, she posted the link, but just in case, it is on National
Reparation. Yeah, national reparation. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, it's important to recognize that. It's important to recognize that if you are a big quote unquote fan of American history, but you haven't heard about this stuff, you have to say, oh crap, I don't know my history. And then you've got to start looking at your sources. I remember being taught that General Custer pretty much saved the world at Wounded Knee. No, that's not the way that happened. None of our history regarding Native Americans is true. Most of it, it's shit. And you wonder why it's hard for them to ascend, to get out of the quagmire they've been in for
Right.
years. When you've got a boot on your neck all the time, it's
Right.
going to be hard to take a breath. We just saw this.
You can't pull your bootstraps up when somebody else's boot is on your neck. Like it's, and we say these things to keep light, but the reality of it is it's really, really easy to tell a group of people you're not doing enough for yourself. Um, for the indigenous tribes of this country, it is egregious because they literally, I mean, they're always changing the rules. We know this. But
Always.
with the indigenous tribes of this country, they are always changing the rules. It's literally like a big shell game.
What?
And when you say, oh, well, there's a lot of alcohol and drug abuse on the reservations. Yeah, that's on purpose. That's no different to me. That's no different than crack in the 80s. And you told them to make a way. So yes, there are a lot of tribes that own casinos. They made a way. Now you want that. So exactly, I'm unclear. Did you want them to make a way for themselves, or did you want them to stop it, Misty? Stop it.
Was I wearing that on my face? I kept trying to tell my thoughts to be quiet, and they must have just come out of my face.
And that's the thing. You say that was the Black Panthers, right? They were considered a militant terrorist group. No. The Black Panthers was Tulsa. The Black Panthers in the Black community were more known for literacy programs,
Education,
breakfast programs, helping people to find jobs,
job skills. Isn't that what we want?
Right, keeping their community safe.
Yes.
But you keep telling people, if you put them in a rat trap, because that's what it is. If you put them in a rat trap and say, well, I don't understand why you're not getting out.
Listen, it's bringing bootstraps to a gunfight. You can pull up your bootstraps all you want, but I mean, you can't fight against that level of firepower when the disparities are so great. There's no way around it. And the fact is, like you've been saying, I mean, look at Keystone XL. This was how many years ago? Very recent, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. It's been a battle for a while, but most recently, 4 or 5 years ago. And we know that at the end of the day, Keystone XL was only going to net what? I think it was something like 25 American jobs, U.S. American jobs, not Canadian. 25 jobs. But it was worth disrupting entire tribes for 25 jobs. And that is still the narrative by the conservatives. Oh, we need to bring Keystone XL back. This gas shortage that we just had, it's because they shut down Keystone XL. Getting back to the idea of the press and not being neutral or having any sort of standard in terms of their coverage. Right. This is what that idiot with the bow tie said, and this is what the parrots repeat. Well, but it's not true. Again, what happened in Alaska? Let me know. Again, when you're playing the shell game, and the shell game is actually kind of brilliant because you keep people on their heels. Mm-hmm. They can't catch up. They can't find their balance because those shells are always moving. In the end, what do? What happens is people end up disenfranchised. Like, right. I am effing sick and tired of these shells.
I'm over it.
Going around and around. I never guess the right one. Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to lay down. And this is what has happened. And this is what will continue to happen. Again,
well,
time.
Am I correct in that it kind of happened? So with Keystone, the tribes were like, no, they would not go away. There was always someone there. They were like, no, we're not leaving. But for instance, with the 99%, they kind of went away. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If I'm misunderstanding, there was all this, I'm staying out. There's 1% of the country that makes all the wealth and nothing's getting trickled down. The 99%, they went away.
Wasn't that the way it always is? Look at what's Floyd Square right now. They are fighting to keep the square closed. There's a battle between everybody, but some of the people there want to keep the square closed. And to make sure that has happened since day one, there are people who have stayed in that square, stayed there to make sure nothing happened, make sure it wasn't reopened. And now talk about lazy, not lazy. They've built organic gardens there. It has become a meeting place. All of these things that are positive, things that are more important to me than a traffic roadway. When you talk about a community healing and recovering, and listen, the crime there, from what I've read, is not super great. Heather's not here, and I didn't have a chance to ask her, but the crime there is pretty out of control. But these people are working to pull themselves up by their bootstraps and turn a tragedy into something that can heal a community.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, commerce.
Mark responded to Alaska. They are trying to rezone tribal lands in a national park because there is oil there. Oh, wow. Haven't heard that before.
Yeah, that's a new one.
I mean, it's literally rinse, wash, repeat.
But you know what? It could happen anywhere. Nikki just bought her fabulous house. Kanahura. I don't want this to happen. But I'm saying, like, if somebody were to find minerals there, they'd be like, here, eminent domain, I'm gonna give you a set of AirPods. Bye now, we're gonna take this.
That's what the Dan Ryan Expressway is in Chicago. Let's see. I don't know the numbers. There a lot of I don't know the numbers there. Robin, if you're on, what was the original numbers? But like the numbers of the expressway. But basically the Dan Ryan I think it's 1994. But they said we need to build an expressway. You have to leave. It was in a predominantly Black neighborhood. Because
of course,
the further north you get, there is no expressway. Lakeshore Drive, they moved the lake, so that's the furthest east you can go in the city. Am I saying that right? Yes, that's the furthest east you can go in the city. The expressway, once you get past the south side, begins to pull significantly west away from the more desirable areas. Now you wouldn't look at it from that perspective because there's so much, Chicago is very expensive to live in, and so people have to keep moving out anyway. But the Dan Ryan, the expressway that's in the city, once you get past Soldier Field, or right by Soldier Field, is kind of where it converges. It was just a cut through an entire. People just lost their houses. It was just done.
The thing, if you NPR did a story on April 7th. It's called A Brief History of How Racism Shaped Interstate Highways. It's a 7-minute listen. You can listen to it. But if you look at maps, always these interstates either cut through or completely destroy Black neighborhoods. No one is going to put an expressway through the middle of Beverly Hills. I don't care how enterprising you are, and I don't even care, even if Elon Musk wanted it built, it wouldn't happen. But, if you go down to, I don't know, Inglewood or Watts and just say, you know what, we need another highway, let's put it right here, there'd be little objection from outside of the community. Very little. That's a problem. And again, it is a slap in the face to people who are just trying to survive.
Yeah, for sure.
Can
you see me, Misty?
I can see
Misty,
you. You're blurry.
Okay.
And you're on a little bit of a delay, but I can see you. Maybe
okay.
Wiggle your device.
I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, you were a little bit robotic last week too. Oh, there she is. She's got a little swirling circle around her. Turn your device, Nikki. See if turning it will help. Well, I mean, it's the thought that counts. Well, let's see.
No difference?
It's a little bit better, actually. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to turn it a little bit more. I have to move me.
Well, that's fine, too.
Different, better, worse?
Now we can see the plant. Yeah.
What was the
So,
video
you
you
know,
just mentioned?
Harmony, a brief history of how racism shaped interstate highways. It's on NPR. And, you know, again, this is not like the most fun thing to talk about. I would rather talk about my collection of UGG boots and bikinis, but let's be real. Those aren't real issues. And the fact is, if you really, really want to understand why we are the way we are, why things are so messy here in the United States, what you have to understand is that every structure, every institution, every bit of everything has the angle of racism and oppression tucked into it, in the corners, holding it up in the on the edges, you know, whatever it is, it's all there. It doesn't go away. And that's why we talk about it, is because clearly they're not teaching it. And, you know, even in a lot of cases, we're learning as we go along. Welcome. But we have to know this. We have to understand. United States versus Billie Holiday. Oh, yeah. That's a lot. I got to close this door because I'm freezing my cheeks off. And they're not even sweaty.
Are they hairy?
No!
And in addition, it's not just about the history, right? It's about those who don't want to confront what, you know, what a mirror to look in, right? That's a big fat mirror to look in, and then have to accept your own culpability in a circumstance. So I think Heather posted the other day that someone, I'm speaking about Heather Anderson, so you know her, she's got two little Twinkies, one boy, one girl, but they're black. And a kid told his son he was Michael Jackson because he was wearing sunscreen.
Oh, that made me so fucking mad. I was mad as a snake when I read that. Ugh.
And there were so many things wrong with it, and everyone was like, oh, the parent, and I was like, these are not 5-year-olds. These are not babies. Her kids, they just had a birthday. I think they just turned 14.
14, I believe.
I believe they're at least 13, but I think that they just turned 14. And I was like, no. I'm like, you better know my kids know better. My kids know better.
But our kids have to know better, Nikki. It is different.
And
our kids are required to know better. Their kids don't have to know better.
Well, my point is, so middle school is this really, really interesting space where it's this really interesting space where kids are really learning that, oh, wow, what mom and dad says actually isn't the gospel. Like, and they're learning about their own opinions and choices. And so don't get me wrong, that parent needs to be sat down and with just spoon-fed soap with a steak knife. But as much as it's the parent's fault, that kid is at an age where he fully understood what he was saying. It wasn't inquisitive. It wasn't the 3-year-old. So you know, my hair is short, but my hair has been shorter. And I was in a store one day, and this little girl, and it was really funny because she had 2 dads, and so she was like, "Are you a boy?" And Dad was mortified. And he's like, honey, and I'm like,
Nikki, we are
that's
losing
a
this entire
toddler.
story.
Good luck.
Can't hear you. We appear to be having technical difficulties. What a surprise. I'm going to text my friend right now. Hopefully you can still hear me. Somebody send me a message saying that you can hear me. Or else I will assume I'm talking to myself, which happens actually every day, but usually in the shower. She's back. Well, we hope. But anyway, the point is still sound. Yeah, I mean, at some point, we have to hold the children responsible. They're old enough. They should be able to manage these things to a point. Thank you very much. They should be able to manage themselves in social situations. And if they can't, yeah, they absolutely have to be called out. So what our friend Heather did, Heather went over the kid and told him about himself. Of course, in a very, I wouldn't say it was particularly diplomatic. I think it was just very, very clear and true. No emotion. She pretty much called him an asshole without using the ass and the whole word. But she did. And she said, I think I'm going to talk to the mother. And I said, you should. Absolutely should. If you don't nip it early, it becomes a problem later. Yes, we can see you now. Can you hear us, Nikki?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome.
You were super clear until you started talking, and now you're blurry again. So, but let's go for it.
Oh, no.
That's okay.
Okay.
So, you were telling a story about a small toddler that was not sure or boy.
She thought, no, it was, yeah. And the dad was mortified, and he was gay. And he was obviously gay. There were two dads, and he was mortified. And I just started laughing, and I said, it's fine. And it was really interesting because there was so much wrapped into it, because he was a white gay dad. I was a black hetero female. And I just looked at him and I said, but she didn't do anything but look at my hair. I was like, that was her perspective. I said, she mostly sees that guys have shorter hair and girls have longer hair. And that's how she's looking at the characteristics to determine. And I said, I threw her off. And I said, and it was funny. And I said, but I'm fine with it. He was like, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, don't be. I'm like, because that's probably not the worst thing that's going to come out of her mouth is, are you okay?
Not at all. But, she's a toddler. She's 3. Her life experience is this big. When you're talking about
Correct.
A middle schooler, they at least have television. And if you have television, you know better. Period. That's a dig. That is a dig. We have a message here. And what about kids like mine who don't see race as a part of their relationships? I mean, I think, and we may differ on this, I'm not sure, but, my point of view, if your kids are seeing people as people and not discounting their race if it becomes an issue, if it comes up, not minimizing, not, those things don't really happen or whatever it is, listen, race should not be the center of their world, especially as kids.
But wait. Can you elaborate on that? I don't know. Do you know his real name, Misty?
No, I can't. Wait. Maybe that's Chris Berkovich. Maybe.
Can you elaborate on what about kids like mine who don't see race as part of their relationships? I need some understanding. Because I was looking because I can't see. So I had to look and I'm like, oh, it's a white guy. Okay, it's a white guy. I think it's a white guy. That looks like a white guy.
Yeah,
yes, please.
That's Chris. We went together. Hey,
Okay.
hi.
Can you elaborate on that? Because I want to understand more about what you're saying, because I can't teach my children not to see race as a part of their relationships.
I don't think you teach it. I think that
No, no,
you
no, no. I mean, okay,
accept.
I that it has to be like I have to know and I have to tell my children, which is why I want him to elaborate. As a Black mother, I have to tell my children that you have to be mindful of the different colors of your friends. Not because you can't be friends with them, but I'm raising Black boys.
It's more than
So
color, though. It's also culture. I
it's
think
all
that
of that.
all components are important.
It is.
But I think we
And
might be looking at it, Chris. Yeah, let's see. My kids come
that
from a
was
mixed family,
okay.
and we see people as people. Yeah, and so all of our kids, including Nikki's and mine, are of mixed heritage. And Harrison and I have talked about this because his point of view is my friends are my friends and they see me as how they see me, and if something happens, they would have my back no matter what. And I had to be that mom that's like, probably not. We live in a suburb in which you may feel that way and your friends may even feel that way, but I'm betting their parents do not. And so you have to be wise and smart and aware. But at the same time, I don't want him walking into every friendship like, dude, I'm Black. Like, that's different. And like, you know what I mean, though? Like, I think when they're young, they have to be kids. But I think as they get older, there's a certain level of social responsibility that we have and cultural awareness that's required to make sure that they get, especially, if people out there, if you have white children, because you're white, if you have white children, and and, and
Misty, put the flask
they're
down.
don't I wish, right? But you're in a situation where you're in a store and the kids are all accused of something, but you see that person going after the Black kid because it's always the Black kid. I mean, even on TV, it's always the Black kid that gets blamed, whether it's the Black kid or not. Like, you do have to teach your kids, white parents, to look out for your friends of different colors and ethnicities. You
Yeah.
have to. So that's where Nikki was coming from. I knew that's where she was going.
Yeah.
Superficially,
And
it's great
because
that they can have that relationship, but there has to be more depth to it because it is a deep situation.
And then again, so Chris, to go even a bit further, we have brown boys. We started this conversation off with a brown boy, and once again, misinterpreted, misunderstood, never even existed in the first place circumstance with a white woman. That was the catalyst for a massacre. Emmett Till.
Yep.
And so I don't sit in that place where I don't even understand my children's full perspective, because my children are biracial, I am not. So that's number one. My children are male and biracial. I am not male, contrary to what 3-year-old toddlers may think. But yeah, right now, to me, in this day and age, yeah, the worst thing my son could have is a white girlfriend. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to say anything, but I'm going to keep educating my child. And it's like, you make sure your friends have your back because you make sure your friends have your back. But guess what? This isn't even college. My child's friends are attached to their parents who may not have the same beliefs, agendas as their children. So
And it's terrifying.
it's terrifying. And so, no, I don't see people as people. I got to feel them out. I have a wide array, a very broad spectrum. I listen here, sissy. I gotta get the cable guy out because it's a big house and
You don't need the cable guy. Just get a signal booster. That's all you need.
well, we have to do that, but we're actually investigating where the voids are in the house. We're on it.
We're losing you, Roboto.
Oh no.
Okay, there you are.
Okay.
Just stay still and talk fast.
No, I can't sit in that space where I can just see people as people, because that's a little naive to me in my circumstance, because it may very well mean the life of my husband or my children. But over 100 years ago, people were not raised to go love each other as one people.
They're not raised to do it now, though, Chris, either.
Yeah, they're not.
I love the idea, and you know, we grew up together. Like, we understand what that is, to just have that connection that is just kids being kids. But you know just as well as I do, we also had people that weren't content with that, from administration to parents to the whole 9 yards. You know, I get what Nikki is saying, and I concur. I don't let people in easily either, because the fact is, being a person of color, of any color in this country, any color, I think, that is beyond pale, you're constantly waiting for the shoe to drop. And that's the truth. And this is why it's so important that we know our friends, our kids' friends, and know our kids' friends' parents, even though it's a really hard thing to do. Are you swapping devices, Nikki?
I am going to swap and see if that's helpful.
All right. Yeah, we have to do that, not because we want to, and not because we want to give our kids fear. I remember just laboring over this when Harrison was itty bitty. You know, I don't want him to live in that world. I don't want him to have that. Preschool taught me, oh my God, so much better. Preschool taught me that we can't have that yet. In America and in the world as it is right now, we cannot have that. So instead, we have to be smart. We have to be prepared. We have to make sure our children are safe, because there's nobody else that's going to protect our children. We have to teach our kids, yes, but we can't teach it to them from a place of Pollyanna. We absolutely have to teach them from a place of personal safety. I mean, there was a story at the beginning of the year where a young Black girl was killed by her friends in high school. They were her friends. She got together with them because they were having a sleepover and she was invited, but they had a plan to torture her because they were mad because some boy liked her. And granted, that can happen with anybody, but understand that getting something like that prosecuted for the Black family is always going to be harder than it is for the white family. And the fact is, those young, pretty white girls that were blonde and cheerleaders will get a much lesser sentence than it would have been if it was the other way around. So we can teach the Kumbaya, and I love Kumbaya. I actually hate the song, really, but I love the idea. La, 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 we're all together. I love it. But at the end of the day, I'm a pragmatist. And at the end of the day, I'm a freaking lunatic when it comes to keeping my kids safe. And the only way to keep them safe is to be up in everybody's grill, making sure that they understand that you are present, because the assumption is that kids of color don't have parents that are present. So you've got to be present. You've got to make sure that that kid has love and affection and tenderness, and you have to make sure that they know that even though they're playing the kumbaya game, you've got one eye open and the other hand on your ninja stars.
Yeah, I can't afford to be naive when it comes to my children's lives.
Life or death.
I can't afford to, I have to prepare them for having conversations, like if a kid comes up to them. My son is actually having an issue right now, where a kid keeps touching his hair, but he's doing it for the express purpose. And he definitely has my hair. He's doing it for the express purpose to incite and to try to get him in trouble. And Aries knows this, and he's handling it very well. And I'm also walking that line, right, of just the regular teenage stuff, not the racially charged teenage stuff, just the regular teenage stuff where it's like, you got to fight your own battles, you got to work your own problems. But I'm like, but our communication between he and I is, I have to know everything. I have to know everything. And then if it begins to escalate, we can work the problem together. But I also have the principal on speed dial.
Mm-hmm.
So, but because there's just the regular teenage stuff too, right? Because you want them to grow into themselves and into their personalities and to quote unquote fight their own battles. But some battles are bigger than them.
Right. And they're young.
They're,
the fact is,
yeah.
they shouldn't be trying to fight this battle on their own. They shouldn't.
No, nobody touches the hair. If that's what you mean by they do that to your Zach. That historically, I don't know if your children are biracial in terms of being white and black. I don't want to make assumptions, but touching of the hair, the commenting, that is, don't forget, Black people were on display. They used to take Black children and put them in essentially pens and feed them bananas for white onlookers. The hair, the difference is, my hair texture shouldn't be an anomaly to a white person.
That's right.
Yes, don't touch my hair. Like it's not a curiosity to Blacks.
It's not the fucking zoo.
It's not, and
you
that's
don't
why.
get to pet people.
And
if
that
I
was
walked
my
up to some
point.
dude and started petting his peen because it was sticking out of his pants, you know where I would go? Straight to jail. You don't go up to somebody and touch their hair. We teach our children, if we're not savages, you don't go up and touch people.
But even still, again,
fluffer.
Where who else does that? No one else does that. Just because something looks different doesn't mean you get to touch it. You don't go up to the Black grizzly bear and say, well, your paws are just so different than mine. Can I touch those? It sounds strange, but there is an inherent permission that white people have given themselves, that they can touch and stroke and comment and be inquisitive unnecessarily about other things, but they do not give others permission to feel that way about them.
Well, because and it's, why would they? They're normal.
Right. It goes back to that standard that they feel that theirs is the model.
And yes, what Robin said, that's assault. I'm not
just assault.
What happens to you for touching me? And yet, this is where they start to get kids at school. This is exactly it. Because inevitably, you know, Chet's son Biff is going to go over and touch some Black kid's hair. and it's the wrong kid and they clock him, who gets suspended?
No, I'm going to tell you, it's not a him. A white kid is going to do it to a black girl. And this
That's
is
what I
where,
said.
not even just a boy, it's going to be a girl. And it becomes this. So now the labeling of black girls are angry,
You and me both,
or
girl.
the angry black women. That is where it starts. It starts so young because, once again, historically, you have to understand that not because, I mean, black men and women, as when they were enslaved, black men and women were abused both physically, emotionally, sexually. A lot of people don't know that black men were used as bucks for the disgusting proclivities of white men, who couldn't be. It was okay for them to express their homosexuality to their property,
Right.
but not in there. And
Can
of
you
course,
digest that for a minute, by the way?
ooh,
It was okay for you to, what did you say? Express your proclivity.
express their homosexual proclivities to with their property.
Right.
In
Right.
some ways, I don't
Like it's a
dare
glory
dive.
hole or something. Like,
Right, exactly.
again,
Or it was okay because doing it with the slave didn't mean that you were gay, even though there were other white men who were there witnessing it. That, right. But, and so that did happen. So that was definitely a thing, and it happened. So I mean, enslaved blacks weren't just, it wasn't just about the field and the hard labor. It was really about, um trying to take someone's soul away from them, trying to literally make this person as literally a thing, right? An inanimate object in any shape, way, manner. It was property. But for women, and I am not debating one rape over another. I am not debating that. Please don't understand that. But for women, it was long lasting because more often than not, it produced a baby.
that was stolen. That was also put into the business of being a slave, being enslaved.
Rinse, wash, repeat.
There we go.
And so when we talk about generational trauma, touching someone's person, regardless of what it is, viewing them as different. Because if you're touching my hair, oh my God, your hair's so cool, can I touch it? No, because I'm not a pet. Touching someone's hair is still reminiscent of that, because what you must understand is there's a reach for, it's already being, it's an action. May I touch your, the hand is on the hair as they're simultaneously saying hair.
Oh, it's
And
oftentimes not even that. Oh, I just wanted to see what it felt like.
so yes.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
yes, Robin, it is an assault. And so then when you meet that assault with another assault, somehow now we want to pull out the measuring stick and decide that, oh, well, your assault, that assault was down here, but your assault was way up here. There is a, yeah, it is. Sissy, that's very much what it is. Misty and I talk about this all the time in the Pilates world. The black men in the Pilates world. Oh, wow. I'm going to say it out loud.
there she goes again.
They're all attached to a white woman. And
So
I don't mean necessarily as a partner. I mean, there is a distinction between the black male teachers in the Pilates world and the black female teachers. And the black male teachers in the Pilates world, a lot of them are held on high.
there's no doubt in that.
And so it's another form of division. And that's an intricacy. That's an intricacy, because I don't think that anyone should deny if you're given a job opportunity and you're given the opportunity to do better, be more, and to show your skills and to highlight. Oh my gosh, absolutely. In our community, though, it feels to me, I'm going to speak for myself. It feels to me like the black man leave the black woman by the wayside.
Is that just Pilates?
No, but I mean that's what that's what I do. So that's the perspective that I speak from. I mean, I don't, but it's, the difference, Chris, is and I've learned to use my my secret superpower for good. I typically deal with school stuff, and I have great communication with my kid's dad, who is white. But when the shit hits the fan, I tap him in. I'm like, dude, tag, you're it. Do the white guy thing. I'm like,
that. Yeah, and you have to. It's completely ridiculous, but that is exactly what we have to do.
Sissy, stop.
How are we back to peens again? How are we back to peens? We try to have an up-level show, and we go right back into the hole. No pun intended.
He went there, and on that note, back to the peens. I do have to sign off early, but I don't think Misty should leave. I think Misty's rather enjoying the peens conversation.
I feel like if I talk about peens too loud, things around here are going to have to happen, and I still haven't eaten dinner yet. So I'm just saying, I'm making steaks tonight. Sorry, vegans.
Ooh, I'm coming to Philly.
Oh, man. Pittsburgh. You can go to Philly.
Sorry,
you're going to be hungry because I'm in Pittsburgh. They're like this thick. It's going to take them forever to cook, so I should probably get started anyway. So good thing you've got an appointment.
I do.
But
ThoughtFLOW, our community. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for your honesty. For
not being offended when we talk about peens and fluffer.
Well, we're kind of headed into, strange days. There's a lot coming across this next week. There's a lot. And first and foremost, please stay safe. Please give love. But there is a lot coming down the path, and summer hasn't even technically started. But thank you for joining us as always.
Support each other.
Love each other.
Thank you for being here tonight. So happy to talk about all of the, I'd rather talk about other things, but this is important and necessary, and I love talking about it with you guys because I know that you're in it for the right reasons. That's right.
She's got steaks. She's going to get steaks.
And I'm making Mexican street corn to go with it. So,
elote.
Next week, next Thursday, gun control. Oh, yeah, we got to talk about that too. Next Thursday is our first anniversary of ThoughtFLOW.
It's our anniversary.
Yeah, it's that.
Okay,
I don't think. So the story is that we hope that you can join us next week. We're going to talk about anything and everything. So I've got one vote for gun control right there. If you have anything, any subject, there is no subject we won't talk about.
We're here.
So please join us. Put it in the chat. It's going to be a fun conversation. So looking forward to having you. Hopefully we'll be dual platform next week too. So I'm going to try to figure out the...
Yes, it has been a year. Yes.
It has been a year. It feels like it's taken 10 years and yet it flew by. I don't even know how that happens. But again...
you know what? There were only 3 times that we didn't do a show. And one of them was over the winter break.
Right. True that. We did have one. It's a total of 3 shows. So, we're in this. We are ready. So All these other shows out here, they don't have as much fun as we do.
We do.
They don't have the best audience like we do. So thank you, everybody. We will see you next week for the anniversary spectacular. We'll have to decide if there's costumes involved, Nikki.
Ooh, costumes.
Think about it. We'll chat.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Be safe.
Happy
Enjoy
weekend.
your weekend.
Have a great long weekend.